explain to us why Coconut Prince? Because it's obviously, it's
loaded.
It's loaded, man. It's loaded.
Well, obviously I adore coconuts. My name is Anthony Aris-Osula, author of the book Coconut Prince, Memoir of a Black Sheep. And I'm joined by my friend Shabazz L. Graham, co-founder of QCast, a new platform all about people's questions. And he's asking me all about the book and what exactly is a coconut prince? Let's get into it. And Shabazz, this is crazy. We're finally doing this, right?
We are doing it.
Sitting down, I finally got you to a chair. Don't sound good. Rewind. I finally got you on the spot because you're a busy man.
Appreciate it, man. I was thinking I'd be the last person you'd want because of all the spoilers I've
I know, you are
unwittingly given you.
You are the king of spoilers, my friend.
King of accidental spoiler releases.
Yeah. Well, I remember the times when we see a movie and if I'd seen it before, if I even gave a knowing look, you'd be like, Tony, turn away, sit somewhere else. But man, you've given whole I see dead people type spoilers in your time, man.
Not that bad.
Close.
I'm really honoured to be here, Tony. Genuinely, I think you being an author now,
yeah,
you're actually
right?
making the step into actually putting what is in your heart and in your mind down on paper or typing it into your computer and allowing us to basically glimpse in. It's great to see, dude. And so I feel genuinely privileged and honoured to be one of the first people to speak to you about it.
Yeah. And to have even read some of it.
And to have read some of it, mate. Very touching. I was genuinely very moved. You're a very good writer.
Thank you, bro. And I know you're an honest guy. So
I'm not just saying that because the cameras are on.
What's he going to say?
No, I had moments of laughter. I had moments when I was like, dude, this is stand-up comedian material. But then I had moments where I'm like, dag, that's heart-wrenching. That's touching. That's engaging. And you carried me, and this is what I always want from whether it's a film or a book I'm reading. Everyone wants it from someone that's telling them a story. You want to vicariously live the story through the person. And I was able to step into you as a child, as a boy. I won't give too much spoilers away.
Spoiler alert!
But I was able to experience some of your childhood through how you depicted your early days, man. So thank you for
at least we know
sharing.
the hero doesn't die in the end in this story. I'm very much here.
Mate, you more than don't die again, you live again.
Yeah.
Born again, you kind of see what I did there?
I see what you did there.
No?
Yeah.
You can tell I'm not the comedian in the two, right? Oh, dude, I will stop.
Every double act needs a straight man.
Dude, so let's get into a little bit about the book without too many spoilers. So the first thing I want to touch on is the enigmatic name and title of your book. Yeah. I want you to explain to us what the title means to you, why you chose that title. It obviously is Coconut Prince.
Yeah. Who is this Coconut Prince?
And obviously, I don't know if it's from the generation that I'm from or we're from, but I immediately know what you mean by coconut. But explain to people who won't know what coconut means, and then explain to us why Coconut Prince. Because it's obviously, it's
loaded.
It's loaded, man. It's loaded.
Well, obviously I adore coconuts. What's my favourite food? No, you're joking.
Classic.
I think it's pretty much, it sums up, when you know the meaning, it sums it up perfectly, really, in that, you know, a coconut is something that's one thing on the outside and something very different on the inside.
Yeah.
You know, for our generation, you know, if you were a black person, I guess it's like in America, for our American friends, the concept of Oreo. Yeah. You know, the little biscuit thing. Yeah. Black, white, black.
It's got a lot of negative connotations.
Negative connotations. So if you're coconut as a black person, you're black on the outside, but really deep down you're white. Culturally, the way you speak, your mannerisms, and I think it's an offensive slur. Very offensive. Not so common now. There are other slurs, I'm sure, but for someone who isn't authentically black, you know, coconut was one of the top ones. And it was damaging, you know. It was one of those things where it was a reminder or a statement that you're not accepted. We don't see you as legitimate.
Yeah.
And no one really wants to feel that way. The Prince is another aspect of my life that I might get into a little bit later. But in terms of Coconut, black on the outside, which I clearly visibly am, but in many ways perceived, you know, not to be.
And are you owning that title then as a Coconut? Are you claiming to be one? That's what people are going to ask you, because you're obviously
Coconut Prince.
You're probably, when you cut this together, you'll probably put a beautiful image of the front cover, and people will see you holding a passport and a coconut, crown on your head.
On my head.
It's very dynamic, very eye-catching. Are you owning that title then with that, or are you more so owning the princely aspect?
I think I'm owning, on one hand, I'm owning the journey, as they like to say in these shows, the process, the journey that I've been on, in a sense of the negative connotation. I guess it's in some ways when people want to say, I'm reclaiming the N-word. Personally, I don't necessarily agree with that argument, though, even though in a way I'm kind of using that logic. I'm doing it on purpose. I'm claiming the word, and in some ways I'm owning this history of it, the negative connotations to me and people like me who are black visibly but seen as white. And then on the flip side of it, I'm sort of redefining it, almost my Coconut manifesto. Okay. That for those who may be rejected based on where they don't fit, be it racially, culturally, in terms of all the expectations, owning that, because obviously no one eats a coconut skin unless they're that way inclined or very hungry. But the inside of a coconut is where you find the gold. Yeah. So in some ways, it's more than meets the eye. Nice. You know, the strap line is identity more than skin deep.
Bit of a double entendre.
Bit of a double entendre there.
Nice. But you've turned the title into a bit of an oxymoron as well, because you immediately are kind of brought into the mindset of thinking, well, what's the princely aspect? And I know you're not going to give too many spoilers away, but it does feel as though you've offered up something quite derogatory, a slur with a sense of redemption, with the whole princely aspect, which is very it pulls you in.
I will throw a bone. Yeah. I know we're trying to be spoiler shy, but it's actually on the back page in a way of the book. The blurb. I was transracially adopted, so black kid, grew up in the 80s in a white family, a loving white family. You know, mum and dad. It's almost like the old show Diff'rent Strokes, or like the Steve Martin comedy The Jerk, where he's white and his family are black and no one tells him he's white. In a way, it was like my life, but it wasn't comedy. I actually didn't even know I was adopted as a small child, because I guess they just didn't really say it. And though it was obvious, all you know is that you're different. Maybe I was the anomaly. I get my black skin from great grand uncle or something. So all I knew was their home, and all I knew was that family unit. So
it's interesting that I've always had this kind of mindset of, when does a child become racialized? When does a child become socialized so that child begins to see the term black no longer as this, paint stroke when he's basically painting on the wall at, nursery, but starts to see it as an identity label for the color of their brown skin. And I can imagine that if you haven't been informed officially, you would naturally start to just feel different growing up in that environment. And I don't want to give too much of the book away, because I think it's important for people to go on the journey with you rather than be given the destination at this stage. But what was it like as you began to relive? Because obviously I commend authors for digging deep and excavating aspects of their past, especially if they're writing a memoir, as your book is. What was it like revisiting some of the aspects of your childhood, bringing them forward? I mean, like I said, you go from moments of joy to moments of pain, moments of serious heartache. What was that like?
I tried not to sort of sugarcoat it, bro. And I mean, you know me in my life, but for the benefit of those who don't, it's a lot of different junction points. And I've been writing this book, the best part of, just over 10 years. And I think it's taken that long, not because I'm a slow writer. I actually write pretty quick. But I realised for every chapter what I thought, though I lived it, so I assumed that I dealt with it, and I realised, I was going through the process of, and I think going through the process of reliving it, like there are people who are close to me that are no longer with us. And it was almost like writing about them, sort of conjured them up in the room with me. And then that obviously hit an emotional chord and was quite painful, to be honest.
Of course.
So even the happy memories involved with people that are no longer with us, places that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It was quite a challenge. So that sense of introspection, I assumed I'd gotten healing over some of it, but then in the process of going through the emotions of writing it, I'd realised I hadn't quite healed.
Came to the surface.
I mean, I'm pleased to report I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm not releasing anything that I'm going to be like triggered by, but that's why it took so long.
Yeah. It needed that time as well for you to actually fully regurgitate and bring it back up. And obviously we're not going to give away too many spoilers, but a huge part of the pain is abandonment. Being in a situation where you were forced to live with and be raised by a couple that weren't your biological parents, but were obviously loving and welcomed you into their home and gave you
good people.
Yeah, and these are people that you've obviously experienced your childhood with.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was difficult because, I mean, I read it in the book. I love my mum and dad, but they were already in their 50s when I came along. So when I was growing up, they were reaching to their 60s, and it was like...
And just to be clear, you call
them mum and dad, my adoptive parents.
Your adoptive parents, mum and dad.
Mum and dad.
Yeah.
So I'd go to school, and things like sports day, they, didn't really come because my dad always worked, but any school events, if one of my parents came, it was that kind of awkward thing. And then each new school year, the teacher would do a double take and pretend it wasn't a big deal. And say, oh, here's my parents.
Wow.
And I kind of joke in the book that sometimes, much as I loved my mum, she was more like Mrs. Slocum and Are You Being Served? Okay. I was a UK comedy, and I wanted it to be like Claire Huxtable in the Cosbys.
Oh, wow.
We're showing our age here, but our generation will get the reference. So, there was that whole mismatched pair of socks thing.
Yeah.
I remember going to Lewisham in South East London, where, I grew up the area nearby, and it'd be this strange sight of this sort of older white guy with his black son, and you'd get different reactions. Some smiled, heartwarming.
Because just to be clear, your adoptive parents were
white,
elderly.
Elderly,
and
in their 60s.
Wow.
White. Me being, the black kid.
So there was a generational gap as well as a racial gap.
Yeah. So in more than one way, they couldn't have been my real parents biologically, but in every other way, they were my mum and dad. But it was and you had this weird loyalty thing where you kind of knew that the world that you were in your house was real to you, but not so much outside.
Not accepted by society.
It was almost like you could see the knowing winks and, that's your son, okay. Yeah. It was a complicit thing, which deep down you're like, why is everyone acting strange about this?
Yeah.
So it's almost like you get used to accepting the world you're in, even though you deep down suspect that it's very different and not quite normal, whatever normal is.
Excellent. I think you naturally feel you can naturally feel that something's wrong with the world in a very Morpheus world, kind of way. Morpheus says to Neo, what is it? You know that there's something wrong with the world. Anyway.
Looking for the white rabbit.
Yeah.
And I mean, the funny thing is, my dad was a very realistic, worldly wise person. My mum was into her old Hollywood movies, very romanticism and stuff like that. So, and I think that carried over in the house a little bit. Sometimes it could be a little bit, whatever we made it, whatever mum and dad made it.
Yeah.
Sometimes interrupted by some blunt, realism, and and my dad we had some very deep conversations growing up, and he was straight. You talk about the talk, and black kids will get from their parents.
Really?
I had the talk from my white dad.
Brilliant.
You
They
know,
were
he
very
prepared me
aware
for
of the
we're
world.
in.
Excellent. So you've lived this story. You've you know, you're 40. Clear your throat. Men can say how old they are.
42, apparently the meaning of life, so hopefully I've sussed it by now, right?
That's why you're releasing the book now, dude.
Yeah! It's that magic number.
So I want to know a little bit, though, about why now. For you know, for 42 years you've lived the life you've lived, you've had the experiences you've had. What makes it so relevant for you now to offer the world your story, your memoir? You know, you're giving us a beautiful nugget in the form of the insight that you've learned over the course of your life. Why are you offering that to the world now? And what is it that you hope your readership, your people that read your book will actually, you know, take from the book?
Yeah, well, without sounding too, you know, over melodramatic, or I've come with a tablet, stone, change the world. I think it's taken so much time, besides the fact that I've dragged my feet on it, you know, and some part of it's my healing process.
Yeah.
I feel that this is an opportune time in terms of, Shabazz, you know the year we've had with COVID, and then the race issues that got sparked by the unfortunate, we can call it now, the murder of George Floyd. You can legally say that. It triggered a lot of stuff. And one thing I know from what I've gone through in my process is I'm a natural bridge builder.
Nice.
I've been a chameleon all my life, with the white kids sort of being comfortable for some of them, especially their parents, going, you know, to their homes and staying over, you know, being with the black kids and having to learn things that they took for granted naturally to code switch, you know, and be comfortable in those environments. I've always, then sometimes even in the playground, bridging the gap between the different groups of kids, racially and in other ways. So I think a lot of my life has been almost prepared to be that drawbridge for people to sort of understand one another and kind of find some kind of common ground in me.
And just to clarify, what's your book is the drawbridge, or your life is offering some sense of connecting two parts. What are the two parts, just so we're clear?
Yeah.
What lands are you connecting together?
Kingdoms.
What kingdoms are you connecting?
Well, you see
together?
it. You alluded it to. Yeah, I mean, you alluded to it on the front of my book. I'm split down the middle because I think I guess it's the nature versus nurture argument, because on one side is my nurture, you know, British, obviously, you know, British born, very much grown up in a white working class situation, and this is my home, the UK, and all the influences that come with that. And then, of course, my roots are in Nigeria, and having that African heritage, which was far bigger than I possibly imagined. I didn't know anything about growing up. And that was like, whoa, finding out, no spoilers, some things. And I guess those two hemispheres that make who I am, thinking if I find one, it will make me more comfortable, or if I, you know, resolve the other, and realizing actually I'm both Aris, my adoptive name, and Osula, my Nigerian heritage name.
Brilliant.
And I'm actually so much more in between. So even though a big part of the journey is through issues such as race, which the world needs to know right now, by the way. I used to think my book was going to be irrelevant, because who cares about, black, white, white family, but then I understood that those ancient wounds have been reopening, right?
Absolutely. You know, we've had many a conversation about the whole, the concept of race. And
the lie of race.
The lie of race, but how it's become truth by how society has almost forced it into to truism. It's now true and now real, even though it's not the biological thing that it used to be. And everyone has something to say about race, and this myth has become this real thing. What would you say to people who struggle to believe, or more so struggle to accept, that transracial adoption is right? You know, you're the byproduct of it, and you've lived through it. But you would say, I believe that there are statistics that obviously there are more white couples that would accept, say, black children than black couples that would accept outside of their quote-unquote race. Speak into that. What are your thoughts about that being right or wrong in people's eyes?
Well, I won't sugarcoat it, Shabazz. It wasn't easy being in that situation. It just clearly wasn't. And it's taken a lot of time processing that. I mean, it's not an ideal situation, but listen, neither is being left in the children's home and never having any loving parents and family. Everybody used to criticize my situation. I'd have to sort of ask them, like, would you rather be raised by an institution?
Yeah.
Because as you alluded to, the stats are clear, particularly here in the UK, the majority of children looking for long-term fostering stroke adoption are from the African Caribbean community.
Wow.
They're going to be left on the shelf. And if they are going to be adopted or long-term fostered, the lion's share of that is going to be by white people, white couples, white individuals. And so inevitably you're going to get a situation where they're going to have that similar situation to me. I used to think growing up I was in a unique situation. Yeah. Then I understood there was a whole plethora of kids, particularly from West Africa, Nigeria, particularly Nigeria, and it's called farming.
Really?
Where children would be left by their parents here in white foster care or adoption, thinking life would be better for them.
Okay.
That wasn't my situation, without going too deeply into it, but that was the case of many. Yeah. So it took years for me to realize, oh, wow, but at least that was with a situation where they thought they were improving the lives of those kids. Unfortunately, most of the kids who are African Caribbean and biracial, by the way, like part black, are going to be the undesirable ones left on the shelf. So I think for me, it's like, it's okay to be against something, but you've not lived in my shoes, number one, on a personal, then on a macro level, what do you say to those kids? You're going to deny them a potential home because it doesn't suit you or your optics? Well, by all means, step up if you feel that strongly about preserving a child's race and identity and play that role yourself. But unfortunately, there's a lot of taboos in, the African Caribbean community about adoption. I don't want to raise somebody else's picnic. I don't want to raise somebody else's child. So, but we're happy to make them and not look after them. Right? Come on now.
Are you going to open that can of beans, mate?
Well, I've already got a target on my head, so.
It's a huge thing, and I think it's to do with culture, isn't it? And how we are informed by the different cultures that we create and the different cultures that we live by. Yeah. And definitely there are good traits and bad traits that stay with all different cultures. Who exactly is your book for? Because I can imagine that if I go to cinema and I see a film that is your film, and God willing, one day your book will be a film.
John Boyega,
hey,
if you're watching.
Is he? Let's plug. I love it. But in terms of, is there? It's full of so much depth, and it's full of so much messaging in a very unpreachy way. No doubt it's going to impact people who have had a similar, life experience. Is that who you were speaking to, or?
Well, funny enough, I am a preacher man.
Nice.
I try to say I'm not a God botherer. I'm a God inquirer.
Nice.
I do love God. I'm not a Bible basher. I don't try and bash it on people, but I am a Christian. I'm quite upfront about that. But ironically, I've tried not to preach with this book, Shabazz. I've tried to let it be an honest, sometimes very raw.
It comes across, man.
Account of what I lived.
Yeah.
And not just the transracial adoption, of course, but growing pains. The amount of young men who commit suicide, even in this country, based on pressures and not being able to talk. Yeah. I went through some things that, I felt bouts of depression and pangs and just that challenge of, losing people close to me, trying to find out who I was, feeling like I was in two minds, not particularly clear about who I was. So in terms of who it's for, on one count, commercially, it'd be sensible to say everyone, right? Everyone buy the book.
Absolutely.
But on a serious note, I'd like to say that, we all have different shoe sizes, but I think you don't have to have been in my shoes literally to relate to this book. I think you can slip on, my life in this book, and I think feel comfortable enough to go on the journey with me and find that it takes you somewhere that might uplift you, inspire you. But in the particular, I'd love to think there was a little black boy or girl somewhere who felt alone in the world, who didn't know who they were, who even may have been called a coconut or whatever the modern version of that is, and felt that, was able to read my book and feel like I'm not alone. Yeah. Somebody went through something similar that I did with those similar questions, but they found answers and they're doing okay. Beautiful. I think that'd be a legacy for me.
It's really nice. I think the key thing that society needs right now is empathy. And I'm sure that there are some people who feel like they're alone, like you were saying that you felt as a child, and they don't have anyone to empathize with. And so it's nice to be able to pick up a book that kind of hits all of the points that you hit, because it's not just like I said, we're not giving away too many spoilers, but you don't just only stay with the idea of transracial adoptee. Yeah. You go on a much deeper journey, and I think along that journey you definitely empathize with so many different types of people that need empathizing with. Yeah. And so it's very.
I love people. I'm an ENFJ, typical people person, the world's coach kind of thing, but without trying to get too heavy with it. I just love the idea of bringing people along on my journeys and any insights
through story,
self-deprecation, sometimes some jokes, movie references, not too many because you start having to pay for them. But I forget song. In life, I'm always coming out with a song. Not in this book, baby, because the royalties, are broke.
Of course. You can't even quote them now, can you?
Yeah.
So you've got a subtitle, is it?
Yeah. Coconut Prince, Memoir of a Black Sheep is the subtitle. But the strap line, which I think you're alluding to, is...
Identity is only skin deep.
More than
skin deep.
Close, bro. So you read the Lisa cover.
Identity is more than skin deep. Now that is...
What is identity is a question.
It's very deep. I love the fact that it's framed into a question. It obviously needs unpacking. If I was to, what does it mean?
I think whatever you want it to mean. I'm going to be one of those guys. It's like you attach your meaning to it.
So you know me, I'm a lover of questions, especially catalytic questions. Hint, hint.
Say what now?
Shameless plug. And I love that you have got this strapline on the cover. Is identity only skin deep? More than skin deep.
Close, you read the title.
I love the fact that we're in a day and age where skin is everything. If someone's got a specific color skin, they are deemed a certain way, and they are definitely identified in that way. It feels like you're kind of like, you're offering a new bit of insight into the conversation that society seems to be having. Please unpack that a little bit. What does that mean to you, and what do you want people to get away from? What do you want people to take away with that question?
Yeah, I mean, listen, bro, we're both black men, clearly. I am, I am extremely, we're both men of similar hues. I'm proud to be of African descent. Mm-hmm. I've loved exploring my heritage, and I'm very proud of it as much as one can be. But to quote a late great singer, I'm not going to spend my life being a colour.
Nice.
It's a part of me, but it's not the full story. And I think it alludes back to the coconut thing, that there isn't a very true exterior, but the best part of me, it's almost like, Shabazz, we've gone backward from Dr. King,
Come on.
Don't judge me on my skin colour, but the content of my character.
Yeah.
I don't have insecurity. I should be, from what people expect. Yeah. Massively insecure about my skin colour and my heritage. But I've explored probably deeper than people that didn't grow up in a transracial situation. My roots, my heritage, my ancestry. I've invested time, energy, all, great effort in exploring and trying to find answers to those deep questions, like the origin story, like superheroes have an origin story. And I was like, who the heck am I? I might have some sort of superpower somewhere, but I need the story first to get that clarity. Because I do believe that in order to move forward, you need to have some resolution about where you came from and like when your story begins.
And I almost kind of like, as you said that, I pictured like, did you wake up one day and see a spider bite from like a radioactive spider?
Bitten by a radioactive coconut.
Trying to work where are the powers? Or did you kind of feel that you kind of like get a bit oozy when you're around kryptonite stones?
Yeah,
It's like you kind of like realize I'm a superhero, and I love
take
that.
off the shirt and suit like Superman. There's an African attire underneath.
Bit of kente cloth. No, I love the fact that I think in life as you begin adulting, as these young people say now, you do begin to pick up a new identity, and maybe that identity is something that I know in you love superhero comics. You are a superhero to many people in different ways. You're a dad, you're a husband, a loving dad, a loving husband.
Kick-ass.
All of that. You're a good worker. You're very passionate in what you do. There's superheroic qualities in adulting. And it makes me kind of think that the idea of identity being more than skin deep depends what aspect of your identity you're defining, because you might be wanting to cast off some aspects of identity that you might not want to be connected to, and taking on more of the identity. And that's what makes me think of your title. Were you wanting to cast off the coconut identity and kind of like take hold of the princely identity?
I think it's both. I think the idea that you can be defined on the surface. On one hand, it's like, no. There's so much more that meets the eye than my skin colour, the things that you can, deduct and align up about who someone is.
Of course.
Know me inside. Break open the shell and get to know the complexities of me, because even on a superficial reading of who I am, my identity is far more complex than that can be driven on a sketch. Drawn down and prescribed. But on the other hand, it's, I guess in some ways it questions the skin and it questions the depth. And also, so on one hand, it's questioning what makes us who we are, and positing the question that surely it's a lot more complex than that. I think ultimately, whether you can relate being black or to blackness, or even if you're white, or anything between those almost reductionist terms. Because we're in a time, like I said, that everything is reductionist. We want a label. There was a time when we fought to get rid of labels. Now it's like, box me up, put a label on my head.
Put more labels on me, put a label on my label.
Label on my label.
Do you think that we're ever going to see a post-racial society?
Utopia.
And would it be a utopia if it was post-racial? And what would post-racial look like?
I think, we'll have to do another combo to go into deep so people don't think we're heretics. But, my thing, I can only speak for myself, is that race is a social, artificial, pseudo-scientific construct. And that, and that's me saying that I embrace whatever people might commonly know as blackness. I embrace a huge chunk of it, particularly as it pertains to ethnicity, heritage, and all of that. What I don't embrace is, like, I've got a daughter, I've got two, but my oldest, she's in a predominantly, black school, and they'll say things like, you can't be into this. Classical music, you can't be into that when you're black, that's white. And there's those things where it can be these negative connotations or these boxes and these ideas of what it is to be something that are just, I think, absurd and insane. But in a post-racial world, I don't think it'd be a world where people don't understand their difference or ethnicity. But it's the idea that, it's a lot more complicated than the reduced, almost lowbrow, the common denominator sort of mindset that we've been indoctrinated in. Because as well, because if you think about someone as other and you prescribe these labels such as race upon them, then you're led into this misguided idea that you can read them and you know them and you can define them and you can somehow predict them, where we're unpredictable, man. Like, we've known each other for a long time, but it would be an insult for me to believe I could get into your head and know exactly what, even more so if I look at your peripheral stuff and I'm like, well, you're this type of guy, or this kind of complexion, you're dressing like this, you're that guy.
Yeah.
What an insult.
I think it's labels go on boxes, don't they?
Yeah.
We tend to put, anytime we get something from all of the passports that we've got from Amazon throughout the pandemic, there's always a label on the box. And I think once a label is given to someone's identity, that identity almost, by default needs to be boxed. And so
back to the ancient world, whoever names you owns you.
Wow, look at that.
Culturally, giving a name is a sense of affiliation, or in some cases ownership.
Yeah.
Like if you were enslaved, they'd give you a new name, right?
Yeah.
Or a new category. And I think it's that process of immerse yourself from labels, even the ones that you may put on yourself because you feel the pressures, society, maybe experiences, like you may have epically messed up.
Yeah.
And you might put yourself derogatory labels on you, like I'm no good, I'm useless, I'm bad mind, I'm bad seed, and it's like, rip them off.
Yeah. Be free.
Be free.
So we're getting ready to land the plane.
Yeah.
This plane of boxes. We've discussed a lot. What is the actual takeaway? Because you've got so much, I would say, insight that you're offering. What's the key takeaway that you would want your listeners, your audience, your readers, the people that are engaging with you, what's the key bit of takeaway for them that you would want to offer through your book, through The Coconut Prince?
That you matter.
Nice.
That I went on a journey to look for someone very special to me.
Nice.
And I ended up discovering myself in the process. And I think I'm grateful for that journey. I wasn't always grateful for my origin story and what happened, but the process of distillation, I actually got to the core of who I was, realizing that in many ways I was always that person all along. I just had to allow the pieces to settle and to lay where they laid and to come together and be glad, at the tap of the mosaic.
Yeah.
Because obviously you want sometimes things to be perfect, where a mosaic can be sometimes like broken, disparate pieces that make a new whole. So I guess in many ways I want people to feel that going on a journey of self-discovery is very important, is very rewarding. I want them to feel almost like a coconut manifesto, that it's not about how other people describe and prescribe you.
Nice.
It's about the process of your self-discovery.
Yeah.
And not in a kind of the journey kind of cliche, but you are one of a kind. I'm quite radical in terms of, I'm not a radical individualist because I do believe in community, but I believe that it's a community of very unique individuals that are not cookie cutter.
Yeah.
I don't believe in sheep, and ironically I put sheep in my subtitle, Memoirs of a Black Sheep, because in some ways I felt like I wanted to be a sheep, someone who was just herded and felt like everybody else rather than an anomaly. So I'd want people to feel it's okay to be different, to go on a journey of self-identification and discovery, and also tell your story.
Tell your story.
You love story, I love story. I found it so liberating, bro, to share my story, because I believe it's the beginning of many different stories I'm going to tell.
Brilliant, man. It feels very much like I've always known you have a very redemptive quality about you, that you want to see redemption in people. It feels like you're offering the opportunity to invite people to redeem their story, especially if they had an upbringing that might be clouded in slurs like coconut or whatever people's version of coconut is in their own life. Would you say that that's true, that you want people to reclaim their story?
That's very true. And I think, we didn't go too deep into the Prince part because, spoiler alert. But in some ways, that is something that I want people to embrace as well.
Yes.
That sometimes the coconut is a negative thing. Sometimes it can be respun in the sense of, the idea that something that's really valuable is within you, not the hairy brown, and I'm neither. Well, I'm brown, but not the exterior, but the inside, whatever, you know, that is inside. The value of you is beyond the external, as in the internal, but also in terms of the prince, the royalty thing, you know, everyone will say, hey, king. It's a thing to say, hey, what up, king? What up, queen? In the culture. I ain't got a problem with that. I don't mind being called prince or king.
Yeah.
But it's that sense that it does speak to the value that people are intrinsically valuable.
Absolutely.
I believe that with all my fibre of my being, Shabazz, that my dad taught me no one is above you, son. No one is beneath you. It makes me very angry when I see people mistreated.
Brilliant.
I don't care who someone is, be it based on their ethnicity, or I've seen people talk to a homeless person like trash, and it's urged me to stand up for the underdog, because I think everybody is special in their own right, and there's a sense of lost royalty. We're all part of some, you know, lost royal family somewhere, I feel.
Absolutely. The human race is a royal family.
Come on now.
And it feels as though we could do with going back to being one race.
Yeah.
As opposed to all these different disparate races.
One tribe.
Absolutely. Well, it's been very insightful sharing this with you, and I know it's just the beginning. I feel like definitely at the moment, culture, we're going through a very important time, and we're engaging in a number of important conversations. And the one about who we are and our identity is very crucial, and I feel that the Coconut Prince is offering a very key bit of insight to that conversation. So on behalf of everyone that reads your book and gets impacted and inspired by it, thank you.
You're welcome, bro. Thank you. I mean,
thank you, mate.
I think it's great to bounce off of you, bro, and to really, because obviously I've lived this and it's my life experience. So it's always a weird thing when you're giving to the world a piece of you, a very honest, true thing. And I'm not over all my issues. There's always that sense of insecurity like any human being is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, if you post a video on YouTube, I'm a bit of a YouTuber, and you get a negative comment, that can sting. Even if you had 20 positive comments, one negative one can floor you. Now imagine showing all your business to any
everyone,
dick who's going to read your life. So, but I feel it's worth it for the value of if one person gets inspired and feels that they can own their true identity, then it'll be worthwhile. And bro, with storytellers, I'm looking forward to us even telling some stories together.
Absolutely, man. Who knows? Maybe I could be the director of your. No, just putting myself out there. I'm joking. I'm joking. I know you want a much more high caliber director, dude. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah. One love, brother.
One love, man. You know I love you, man. Love is strong. It's been an honor.
Thanks, bro. Watching, guys. It's been a blast hanging with my good friend and brother Shabazz L. Graham. His Project QCast is something you're going to want to get involved in. Details will be below. Support him, not just because he's my friend, you know, that kind of thing, but he is onto something fantastic that I'm pretty much excited about. Look forward to interacting with you guys more on the book and more content to come. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, see me on the socials, and I'll see you next time.